Hi, I'm Rich Fink, and this is another episode of FinkTales. This one's called Mr. Fixit. You know, when I was young, I never thought I would be anything like my father, because he was a guy that grew up in the Great Depression, and because of that, he fixed everything, and I mean everything, because he never wanted to spend any money paying for repairmen. I don't ever remember there being a repairman in our house at all. Now, I'm trying to think of a good example of this, and it just came to mind. It's the 1969 Cadillac. My dad had bought the car from my cousin, Barbara, who was so much older than me. I used to call her Aunt Barbara. And Dad bought the car because he thought, you know, that Barbara and her husband Johnny were just ridiculous wanting to replace a car every 2 years. Now, that was a great buy, and it was a great ride until one day the lights started flashing on the dashboard, and then the car just wouldn't run at all. Wouldn't run at all. So Dad came to the conclusion that was an electrical problem, obviously, and he goes off to the dealership and asks how much would the replacement part be. Well, the replacement part was the wiring harness behind the dashboard, and that would be $400 for the replacement. Now, there was no way that Dad was going to pay $400 in 1972 for any part at all. So he comes home and he takes the dashboard off, and I'm looking at this thing, and it's the most amazing thing I'd seen. The whole thing is nothing, just wires, just dense with wiring across this, because this, actually the 69 Cadillac was one of the first cars to ever have all of this high-tech features in there. So I look at it, and he says he's going to repair it himself. And you know, I knew my dad was bright and everything, could fix a lot of things, but fix this, you're looking at, you know, maybe the Bionic Man in there, and the amount of electrical lines in here is more than a spacecraft has. So I'm thinking, no, well, it's nice that he wants to try, but he's not going to be able to do it. And of course, I was wrong again. And he comes out with his little electric ready tester, and he goes about testing every single wire in this harness. And he finds two wires that were shorted out, and he takes them out carefully, measures the gauge on there, goes out, gets two wires the same gauge and the right length and everything, puts it back in, doesn't test anything because he knows it's done. He puts the dashboard back on, and I'm thinking, no, it can't. Boom! And the caddy just jumps to life. And he never had another problem with the wiring system of the caddy. It was the most amazing feat I could possibly imagine. I didn't think it was possible. But once again, like I said before, you know, I was just wrong about it. And you know, so time goes on. That was the best example I can give you, and one of many, because Dad just loved doing things, you know. And for instance, one other example, he had a buddy of his they worked with at Merck & Company. I think his name was Bob, maybe, I'm not sure. But Bob had a problem with his VW Bug. And what Dad say? Oh, let's just drag that thing over to my house, we'll stuff it in the garage, we'll rebuild the whole car. And that's what he did. It was just amazing. So now, okay, enough about Dad and his incredible workmanship. Now let's move ahead several decades, and now at this point I'm knocking at the door of 60, you know, the door to old age. And at this point in time, I have had several repair people come in to take care of some of the appliances, mostly GM people. And I had actually done very small repairs because we once had a slight crack in one of the plastic hoses that runs behind the refrigerator, and I cut that off and put a joint in there. But I really didn't have much to say about that. But then came the day that our built-in microwave, we had to call the repairman in, and he pulled it out, and in 45 minutes he was all done, and he really knew what he's doing, had the right parts. But then when he gave me the bill, I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. And so, not long after that, there was a bigger problem with the refrigerator. The ice cube maker just was totally on the fritz. And I said to myself, now wait a minute, Fink. You know, you're a smart guy. You went to undergraduate school and you got your doctorate out there, and you know, just blew right through biochem. So you can do this. There's no way I am going to pay somebody to repair this refrigerator when I can do it myself. Does that sound familiar to anybody out there? So anyway, I begin the repair by talking to the Oracle, which of course is Google. So I spend time on the internet going through and trying to find out, you know, what was going on, and I came to the conclusion that it was one of two things. It was either the solenoid there, or it was the pump on the top, the water pump. And I was really hoping that it was the solenoid, because they didn't even make that pump anymore, and I didn't know if I could find it. I was looking everywhere and I couldn't find it. So I figured, based upon what I found, it's probably the solenoid. It's most likely. So I make my first trip out for parts, and I go to, and if you're not from Western Loudon, you may not have heard of Nichols Hardware, but Nichols Hardware is a very special place, because as you go in, it's like time travel, because the whole place looks like it was built in 1925. You know, Calvin Coolidge is still president at that point. And they can find you almost anything. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they had a horn from one of Ford's original Model Ts, because you can go into there and have spent days in Home Depot and Lowe's and not found anything, and you go in just desperate for this particular screw or bolt or whatever it is, and you say to them, is there any way that you have anything like this? And the old dude behind the counter goes, well, how many you want? I mean, that's that type of place. Well, I go there, and they didn't have the solenoid, but they did have some life-saving information for me, because we were talking about why I was trying to repair the refrigerator, and I told them about my previous successes by coupling up a piece of the 1/4-inch tubing, and he said, so what'd you use on that? And I said, see, it was just like this, one of these unions, just like this. And he goes, you shouldn't be using that. And I said, no, well, why not? He goes, one word, lead. So I had been poisoning my own, ice maker for God knows how long. Now you would just think that, having found this out, that I would immediately just go home and dial my phone and get the GE repairman in. But no, of course I didn't. I went online, I found out who had the solenoid, I ordered it, and then 4 days later, it comes in. And in that time, I had actually been to Home Depot to get some more parts. So now we're ready to start the repair. And so here is one thing that I do want to just kind of get off base here for a second about Home Depot, and it just surprises me. And I'm not the only one that thinks this either, but no matter what the job is, no matter what the Harry homeowner job is, if you go to Home Depot and you think that, okay, I'll just get the parts I need and I'll go home and get fixed, you're wrong. Because you have got to go to Home Depot minimum 3 times to find everything that you need on there. So there, that's my rant on Home Depot. So anyway, the other thing that's interesting is my wife and I have had this agreement for a long time that she will not help me with homeowner repairs because, you know, we want to save our marriage as much as we could. And this is why we were over 30 years, at this time, over 30 years had a happy marriage. Because Leanne just doesn't enjoy hearing me scream as these repairs continue on. So anyway, I get the tubing and everything, and first thing I have to do is get the refrigerator out. Get the refrigerator out because it's in kind of a cutaway in the kitchen, and it's right across from the island. So I pull the refrigerator out. Immediately I crush my hand between the refrigerator and the marble top of the aisle, and I do my very best just to kind of repress the urge to start swearing. So I push myself behind the refrigerator, and you know, my wife comes along and says, I'm back there and I'm starting to look through things, and now I'm in like this population of dust bunnies. It's all there. And so Leanne says to me, oh, listen, while you're back there, make sure to clean that up and take care of all that dirt back there too, okay? And I go, and she goes, oh, look, I gotta go somewhere. And so then she goes on her errand. And you know, it's better that way, because even if she comes home and I've electrocuted myself and I'm lying on the floor, it's still better for her than hearing me scream myself hoarse for the next several hours. So anyway, so I get back there, and she's gone now, and I get back there and I say, okay, now I've got to start loosening things. So I loosen things at the top because I've got to get to the tubing and the rest of the stuff. So I get that, and then all of a sudden I hear shh, and I'm like, what? And then there's water coming out. And I can't get it tightened, so I have to push myself past the refrigerator again. I have to run through the kitchen, run through the dining room, down the basement stairs, into the rough side of the basement, finding the valve to shut it down. I shut it down. So now I go back through the rough side, back through the basement, up the stairs, through the dining room, and into the kitchen. And as I go in there, I'm about to get back in there, and I realize I need to turn the power off here because I'm ready to step into a puddle of water. So that's a really close call on that. So now I can really get started here. So as I get started, the solenoid is part of what is the under part of the refrigerator. So I have to scrunch myself down there and try to get in there. Try to get the solenoid in there. What I have noticed is that the tubing in there is old and tired and brittle. And at this point, I'm already feeling old and tired and brittle. So I'm spending 45 minutes in there trying to get the tubing into the solenoid. And then I finally say, okay, I just have to replace all the tubing within the refrigerator. So what does that mean? That means the third trip to Home Depot. So I go there, I actually take out the solenoid again so I can make sure I've got the right size tubing and stuff. And at this point I'm getting a little weary. You know, I'm just getting a little weary And it's, so I go there and I have to go back behind the refrigerator and I have to start taking out all of the tubing, and then I have to crunch down again, which I really don't want to do by this point, but I have to, and I have to move the refrigerator, and of course I crush another part of me, but I move the refrigerator out so I can get the door open enough so I can start getting the tubing underneath the drawers for the vegetation, for our vegetables, right? So I have to do that. I'm laying down there and I'm getting this all around here, and it's coming back up, and you know, time is going on here. You know, I mean, at this point, another hour or more is going by, and I eventually, I'm having to push all the wires, you know, underneath that I can't even see underneath the refrigerator. But eventually, an hour and a half goes by, and everything is in place. And I go back behind the refrigerator, say hello to the dust bunnies, and then I realize that the tubing's not in the right place. I have to redo this over again. And so that's what I have to do. And I have to get past the refrigerator again. I have to go down again, which the knees at this point are not happy about. They're like, no, please, do something else. No, I have nothing else to do. So I have to go down and I have to do the tubing all through the refrigerator again. And I have to set everything up, and I'm like, okay, finally. And you know, it's one of those things that you're down so long that you come up and you involuntarily come out with what is well known as the old man sound, which is like, and you're willing yourself to stand up. So I'm like, okay, it's fixed. I just have to turn on the water, and I'm done. Now, this time I'm walking down the stairs. I'm not running. You know, I'm walking, and I walk, you know, out of the kitchen, through the dining room, down the stairs, through the basement, into the rough side. Okay, so I get there. I'm like, okay, great. Turn on the fountain. Turn on the outlet, and I go walking up, and I get halfway up the stairs, and I hear shh. And I'm like, oh no. So now I'm running. Now I'm running back through the dining room, back through the kitchen, and everything else. And I get there, and I realize that somehow I hadn't tightened one of the tubes, and it has come loose. And now there's kind of this, you know, Trivy fountain thing going on here with like this, and I'm trying to stuff this thing back in, and it can't because the water pressure. So now I'm running again. Well, one good thing, I'm so soaking wet now. It is easy to get past the refrigerator. So I do, and I get through, and then dining room, and then down there, and then finally turn it off again. And now I'm like, okay, this is the third cleanup today, but you know, I gotta get it. So, you know, and during this time, the dogs were interested at first because it's the kitchen. But then when they realized no food prep, they just disappeared. So I've got what I call dog towels out, and I'm mopping up the floor and everything. And as luck would have it, I had everything cleaned up, and Leanne walked in. And that was perfect timing. I was at this point terrified to be checking the valve again with nobody around. And so I said to Leanne, okay, this is not helping, you know, doing the repair. Just stand here, and I have to open the valve, and you just tell me if anything leaks, okay? And so I did that, and there was no leaks, and there was no leaks at all, and that was it was just great. And I felt like, you know, pat myself on the back like this was really great. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of what this was, Dad fixing the caddy, he had spent, I know it sounded like he got things done really quickly. Well, not really. It took 3.5 weeks for him to get that done. And that meant every night and every moment on the weekend, every awake moment on the weekend that he was doing it. So that took 3 weeks. Now for me, I kept this list of what I saved, you know, not going in the repairman. So this is my refrigerator repair project summary. So the parts were $50, and I figure that, you know, probably would be at least $250, maybe more for the repairman, right? So that was $50, that's good. Okay, I made 1 trip to Nichols. I made 3 trips to Home Depot. There was 5 hours of Googling, 6 hours of actual repair, 2 hand mashings, 2 stiff and somewhat swollen knees from squatting, kneeling, and other abuse, and 1 very painful low back that was far worse the next morning. Still, somewhere, you know, I still like to think that somewhere in the great beyond, that Dad is proud of me because, you know, that I was repairing things. So later this day, I just kind of, you know, limp and make my way downstairs to my computer, and I turn it on, and I'm very, very happy with myself, and I'm even more delighted that I don't have to look up any more parts because there's no new repairs on the horizon that needs to be doing it. So basically what I did was I just relaxed, and I read the news, and I started checking the stock market reports. And then, you know, Leanne calls me and says, hey, you want to come up and watch some TV? And I'm like, why would I want to watch TV when I'm doing all of this with the market and everything? So you see, like father, like son. And so that's it for today. And hope you're well, and I'll see you the next time with the next episode of FinkTales.